Steve Running. Here's his argument. He says, global warming is true because I say it's true and because I have a Nobel Prize. Therefore, you should believe it. Well, the scientific method says it doesn't matter who you are, what your name is, what position you have. If the prediction doesn't match the data, your hypothesis is wrong, period. Okay. He says the case is closed. It's never closed in science. He says time on the books. He quotes some hypothesis, ancient thing, 100 years old, and he says it's been around 100 years, it's got to be right. Well, he's absolutely wrong because there are hypotheses in the last 10 years that are good, and they tell us what's going on. But they're not out in the open, okay? So we scientists on the inside, we know what's going on, and we know it's nothing to do with carbon dioxide. He tells about this whole disaster. They showed the glaciers and everything. Argument of ignorance. He says, oh, the model will get the same results, therefore they got to be right. Hey, garbage in, garbage out. All these models have the same data fed to them, the same massaged insides fed from this climate research unit. Good physicists say there's no scientific literature where the greenhouse introduced harmonic theoretical physics. The Nobelist that I said was on that same thing where I signed, he says global warming is the new religion. In other words, it's way outside science. They're not obeying the science principles. This is what's inside the mind of the global warmer. By the way, this picture's not moving. That's in your sign. You get all effed up, hey, global warming is true, global warming is true. You're hypnotized, right? I better not show you too long. You might have an accident going home. Climate model, they can't predict climate. They omit sun changes. They emit open currents. They emit clouds. They have the wrong physics. They have a software kludge. You can't believe a climate model. Now, if you can't believe all those things, there's no global warming, folks. And even if there weren't the fraud just makes, we now know for sure what happened. There's an IPCC prediction, hey, the temperatures went down. The IPCC guys say the temperature should have went up. The scientists will say, your hypothesis is wrong. Your models are no good. That's what it proves, okay? Just turn it around. This is a real quick thing, real recent, 2009. Here it shows what's going on inside the climate model. They're essentially saying these red lines going down all in the climate models. This is sea surface temperature going up. Essentially the models, because of false physics, when they let it warm up on the surface, they stop the radiation from going out. And that's what that red line going down. The hotter it gets, the more they trap it. In fact, it goes the other way. The hotter it gets, the more the atmosphere releases its heat. The atmosphere is stable, it's compensating, there's no concerns about runaway. Okay? That's what that green line is, and that's the true science. There's no known tests for numerical models, by the way. When I've done them, there are tests you go through. I'm not going to enumerate them, but no climate model has passed any of these tests. We've just destroyed global warming, done all the four things, kicked out all four jacks. We win, they lose, the game's over.
You know, it's funny when you think about global. I'm not a scientist, and I am sometimes not the sharpest tool in the shed. But when a politician stands up and says the argument's over, and half the scientific community stands up and says, "Excuse me, not so much." It's interesting to me as a person who is in leadership in our liberty projects that the critical thinking is being bred out of us. Now, whether we're right or wrong, we have stopped asking the question, why, how. They aren't teaching our children critical reasoning skills. I mean, when I listen to how the scientists came to the global warming data, you know what it reminds me of? The Muppet Show. Dr. Bunsen Honeydew standing there and Beaker going, beep, 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 you know. How do they come to these conclusions? Well, part of the problem is that when they spoon feed this information to us, there is a percentage of our population that says, okay. I challenge you to not be that person. Now, don't just oppose it on its face, but do the research, do the reading. And being involved in these ways is hard. It takes time away from Dancing with the Stars and American Idol and all that other crap, I know. But seriously, folks, these types of issues, the information is out there. And for example, I mean, when it comes to having someone like Edwin Berry here, I'm sure he's published. He's a PhD, for gosh sakes. I'm sure he has information on the internet. Look him up. And when you have these conversations with people, and you say, well, global warming is actually a crock, you're wrong. The next step is to tell them why. To not just say, because I said so, but because I heard a lecture with the doctor. I've read, I can cite these papers. You know, back up your knowledge and your arguments with fact, and you win every single time because they build their arguments on a house of cards.